And we're live, Josh. How's it going?
We're on, man. Going
Yeah,
good, dude. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I think to start, the last video we did, there was a comment on YouTube. I don't know if you read the comment on YouTube.
Yeah,
That
I had
I
a
think
I
it's
had a
kind of
brief
good
look
that
at
we
it.
bring it up.
Do you want to pull it up? Or actually, I'll pull it up on my
I mean,
phone.
yeah, I'll just say I'll summarize what the gist of the comment was. The comment
Yeah.
was um, the difference between baptism in different traditions, like what the baptism is actually doing, what people actually believe that the baptism is doing. Like in the Catholic side, they believe in the original sin, and because they
Mm,
believe in the
mm,
original sin, the sooner you get baptized, the better, because
yeah.
you can remove the original sin.
Yeah.
Whereas the non-Catholics, they don't believe in that, which is why
Yeah.
there's no child baptism,
It's
and
interesting.
that's
Hey,
yeah.
it's giving me a yeah. I had a brief look at it. It gave me a lot to think about during the week. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
It's challenging. Obviously, if you're Catholic, you kind of have to assent to the teachings of the church.
Of
But
course, sure.
it's challenging because I don't know if you know. Do you know what the original sin is? Do you know what that is?
Yeah, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong. It's like
Yeah,
you have the sin of Adam that sort of came down from generation to generation, and it's kind of just like stuck around, and so you're washing away that original sin.
yeah.
Is that it?
It's kind of like it's not even it's a sin, but I don't think it's a sin as how you would define a sin. It's more
Mm,
like you have a predilection to do the wrong thing. That's
mm,
that's what got introduced when Adam ate the fruit, when disobeyed God in
right.
the beginning. It's not a sin as in how you might lie. It's uh predilection. I don't know a good word to say this, but it's,
Mm,
let's say, capacity to do wrong. And
mm,
when you get baptized, you get grace, and
mm,
you lose that attachment to sin, your natural inclination. The best way to say it is inclination.
mm. I'm assuming this is in a spiritual sense, not a practical sense.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
I know what you're gonna say, but I'll let you say it. Yeah, because
Well,
I
I'm
thought of
just
it as
thinking
well.
that's
Yeah,
right. Like it doesn't
yeah,
like practically you always have an inclination, right? Like you don't feel like, oh, I'm baptized and therefore I don't have an inclination to sin anymore.
yeah,
Um, so I'm assuming this is spiritually that's that that's that's how I would understand it. But correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah. I think it's spiritually as well, but I also don't like saying spiritually and physically because
Mm,
sometimes it can be you're running away. Like you go spiritual when it's convenient, when
mm,
you want to explain
mm,
something conveniently, and physically when it's not convenient.
mm,
I would say, look, how I would process it is like, yeah, it does it both physical in both senses, both physically and spiritually.
right. So one thing I've so in the comment, one thing it did say was that in Catholicism they believe that baptism is needed to cleanse a baby of original sin, which may affect the child entering heaven. Now, as I understand the Catholic position, it actually doesn't like you don't a child can still enter heaven even if they're not baptized, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So it's not needed. As I understand it, it's like we spoke about last time. There's the intent, or what did you call it? The intent to baptize,
it's
or
the
the
baptism of desire.
baptism of desire. That one, and
Yeah,
so it's not like it's needed. Um, so it's not like it's a prerequisite for salvation. Um, as I understand it, it's more like if you're going against if you're going against baptism for whatever reason, right? Like um, you just don't want to get baptized, or you're just going against what like one of the sacraments that Christ came to establish. So therefore, that might affect your salvation. But
yeah.
not otherwise. That would you say that's a fair way to summarize it?
It is a fair way because it's more like an obedience and disobedience. If you have a
Mm,
chance to get
mm,
baptized and you don't,
mm.
that's disobedience. A child cannot choose to be baptized or not. A child,
Yes.
the Catholics have something called the age of reason as well. And
Mm,
age of reason is once you get to 7 years old, it's around 7 years old. Once you get
yeah.
to 7 years old, then you're deemed to be of sufficient capacity to be able to know good and evil.
Right.
But yeah, but obviously like not fully.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I think I think one thing that as I thought about during the week was I think there's wisdom around. I think you always say, and you've said this multiple times to me, I know in private, where you've said at the end of the day, whether your view is a Catholic view or a Protestant view, you'll generally end up getting baptized.
Yeah.
And how you see it, and the whatever, like we can see it different ways or we can come to that conclusion in different ways, but ultimately we just all end up getting baptized anyway. And I think there's wisdom to sort of see it in that way because I think I was talking to Nina about the canon of scripture and we're talking about like the different books in the Bible versus the Catholic Bible and the Protestant Bible. And then one thing you always say is like, well, we agree on the 66 books, so let's just like stick to those ones and let's just
Yeah.
like we don't even read those 66 books as Christians. So why do we care about the others like 8?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I know it's important, but it's more like just in the day-to-day Christianity, like I struggle to even get through the 66. Like why do I want to, start picking out all these other ones as if like making a big fuss about it? Like if I just, I'll fare well if I stick to the 66 that we both agree on. So I think that's a wise way of looking at it, unless I was a theologian getting paid to sit here studying this. I think it's just I would see baptism the same way, right? Like we'll end up getting baptized eventually if we just whatever view we have. So
Yeah. And like if you think about it practically speaking, say someone wants to start reading the Bible,
mm,
for you, I think for you it's kind of easy because you have 66 books. Whereas
mm,
like I'm thinking about it, I'm like, what do I recommend? Like, it's like it's you don't wanna overwhelm people with too much
yeah,
stuff as
yeah,
well. So
that's right.
what I actually believe, even though like I really like the additional books, like I like
Mm,
Sirach.
mm,
It's got
mm,
a lot of wisdom because
mm,
and the book of wisdom, it's like when you read it, like it gives you more wisdom and you cannot go wrong with more wisdom. I
of
still
course,
think
yeah,
that as a minimum, you should start with the 66 anyway.
yeah,
Like
100%.
start with the New
Yeah,
Testament, go Old Testament. Once you finish that, then you can go to the seventh additional one. And I
other
think
stuff.
those ones everybody should read.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, like, once I got past the first 66, I was like, I've forgotten what I read anyway, so I have to start again. You know what I mean, or
Yeah.
whatever. So no, it's so good.
And you
Yeah,
can
man.
spend your
So
whole
what's
time. You can spend
yeah,
you can spend your whole life reading those
right,
66.
100%. So good. So what's been happening this week? What were you like? Anything come across anything interesting?
Yeah, well, that comment actually, when I read it, it
Mm,
kind of highlighted to me that some of the discussions we have, there's a level of disagreement or discussions we have, but we have them in the low level, but usually without even discussing the top level,
mm,
like we'll say you should be baptized or you shouldn't be baptized,
right.
and that's fine. But the top level is why should we get baptized, and then it keeps going up, and we haven't agreed. Like if you don't believe in original sin, then you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to baptize your kid, no matter how much I say. That's that's the thing, and it reminded me of something that I was reading. It was
Yeah,
it was a survey of leaders, and
yeah,
they were asked a bunch of questions, and it was interesting the results in America. I don't know if I'll share I'll share with you. Maybe
yeah.
how I might do it is I'll ask you the question, and you tell me what you think.
All right,
And
all right.
yeah,
Let's do it.
so question number one they were asked is, do you? Let me have a look at the question, but do you know? Can you see the screen?
I can say it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like a chart of leaders from different Christian practices, and they will
Right.
ask questions like, "Do you know God really exists?" and
Yeah.
have no
And have
doubt.
no doubts. Yeah.
So if I ask you that question, like, "Do you know God really exists and have no doubt?" How would you answer it yourself personally?
I I think that's that's a good question, dude. I think no God really exists and have no doubts. I'm assuming when it says have no doubts about God existence, obviously in light
Yep.
of the question. Um, I think anyone that says like yes, I know God really exists and has no doubts is lying,
Yeah.
right? I 100%. Like you can't be sure about anything, right? Like if you asked me, do you know that I'm sitting on this chair and I have no doubts. Well, I mean, like I'm fairly sure, and it's reasonable to say so. But could I be dreaming? Could I be like in a sort of? I know this is getting like a stupid example, right? But I'm just trying to say, like, you can never be fully sure about anything, right? And so, I think when we're talking about something as deep as like, do you know God exists and have no doubts? Yeah, I think my first response is, of course, everyone has doubts. You can't, you have doubts about everything. Like the person that thinks that God doesn't exist would also have doubts that they're wrong, right? Like everyone's going to have doubts. That would be my initial knee jerk reaction to that question.
So it's a, I don't know that it's phrased really well. I think
Mm,
it should have separated knowing God exists and
mm.
if you have doubt, because you can know something and still doubt it as well. Like, I don't know. Um, I know that you live in Canberra, like I know
Right.
it, but I could have doubts that I don't know if it makes sense.
I'm not sure if that does make sense. Can you know something and have doubts about it? I think because I mean I was watching something throughout the week, and I think it was you may have come across it at God Logic YouTube channel, and he defined doubt as to be unsure of the truth. Right? He's like, would you say that's a fair assumption? And in the debate, they kind of agreed that was a fair assumption of the word like doubt in this context, to be unsure of the truth. And so, I guess the truth that we're claiming in that statement is, do you know God exists? And so if you have doubts of that statement, then you're doubting that is true, if that makes sense. So I'm not sure if you can know something exists and have doubts. I think you're wavering in your like into know something, right? I don't know.
But the thing is,
What do you
with
think?
with God, right? You
Mm-hmm.
you never have perfect knowledge. It's it's always there's a way. Okay, like with your wife or whatever, you've seen them
Yeah. Yeah.
and you've experienced them every day
Right.
because that knowledge is experiential, like very experiential. There's
Mm-hmm.
no doubt to you that Nina exists. With God, the experiences are not they're not always concrete. I can see why, like universally, they're not concrete to everybody. I can see why. I don't know. I've always say my thing is
Mm.
because the knowledge of God is not perfect. You're never gonna have like a perfect belief in it.
Yeah, but like, if someone gaslight me enough to convince me that Nina didn't exist, I might start having doubts.
Would you?
Well, mate, I could be I could be put into that position, right? So, like, if like right now, I don't have any doubts of that my wife exists. But if I was, I guess this happens over time. Like I guess if you're being tortured or something, then you might start having doubts on something.
But is it doubts, or are you just saying something to remove that pain, that physical pain?
I need to think about this. I'm not entirely. I need to think about this. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not convinced that you can know something and then not and have doubts about it at the same time. Because if I'm just thinking, unless we change the definition of, doubt. But in my view, if the definition of doubt is to be unsure, uncertain of the truth or of a truth, and to know, how do we? Well, I guess it depends how you define know. Hang on, I'm gonna have to look it up.
Actually, someone has made a good point. Kremo
Yeah.
loves us all. He says, I feel like it's like doubting during a long distance relationship. It takes
Mhm.
trust. Like, that relationship exists, but you kind of still doubt if it's true. What do you think of that comment, by the way? That
Well, what part would you be doubting in a long distance relationship?
because you're not seeing that someone, like you're not experiencing that someone
Mm,
every day. There's
right.
always like a level of doubt.
Mhm. I think the thing is that it's because now we're going deep here in terms of like,
Yeah,
in my view,
really.
we're
Yeah.
going deep because now I'm starting to think like, how do we define the word no? How do we define the word doubt? And what exactly is it? Is a relationship, right? For example, you can have a relationship with like a dog, right? And a dog won't talk to you. I sometimes hear things like that where it's like, oh, like God doesn't speak to me verbally. Like, how can I have a conversation? How can I have a relationship with God? But I mean, a dog doesn't talk to you either, right? Nor does an infant. And yet you can have a relationship with a dog and an infant. And so, and you can, you can connect through different ways, right? With a dog or an infant. So, I guess if, so it, that, I guess how it defines how we define a relationship, right? Like the comment said, you can have a long distance relationship even if you're not connecting physically. You might be connecting from a long distance, right? So it depends how you define relationship, and then I think it depends how you find the word no. According to the internet here, it refers to possessing information, understanding, or awareness of facts, truths, or people. So I'm not sure where I'm going with this, dude. I'm still not sure. Coming around full circle, I'm not sure if I agree with your original statement of you can know something to be true and still doubt it.
Okay, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't have a very clear answer either way. I just think that it makes sense. And another comment that Nina is saying that sometimes doubt is emotional, not necessarily philosophical. I guess how I understand it, and Nina, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you can have a philosophical knowledge of something, but then from time to time your emotions come in and change that philosophical knowledge. But
Yeah, 100%. I think that's exactly right, and I think Nina's 100% correct. Like you might, you can know you're supposed to do something, but your emotions get in the way, and you start to feel like you're out of it, or you might know that you might have a head knowledge of something, but like within you kind of like don't feel that way.
yeah,
Like a classic one in Christianity is, you might know you're forgiven, but you don't feel forgiven. You know what I mean? And so that's, your emotions get in the way.
yeah, and that. So it does come back to my point that you can know something and still doubt it, correct? Because you can know that you're forgiven, but
Oh,
still
okay.
doubt.
Fair enough. Fair play. Fair play. No, I think you're right. So maybe we need to, you're correct. I think maybe I was more thinking to know something exists, not know a truth of some.
Okay, so
I don't know, dude. I'm gonna have to write this down throughout the week and then come back to it
no.
next week.
Do you
Yeah.
know what? Like, genuinely, the knowledge that I was listening to a few podcasts today about this, and
Mm,
people can talk hours about the definition of knowing things,
mm,
and it goes on and on and on and on.
mm.
And yeah, it can get very muddy if you start defining knowledge.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And I think, kind of going on a slight divergence, Jordan Peterson always says, like, what do you mean by believe, or what does it mean to believe in something? It's in the same vein as that. Like, how do you know that you actually believe anything, right? Or how do we define believe? Is it, something that you say or something that you do or whatever it is? And again, like you said, we can spend hours probably sitting here, like, trying to understand what we mean by I believe this or I believe that. Anyway, what do you think of that?
I was a bit distracted. Can you repeat that?
Oh
Someone
no, I
someone
was
made
just,
a someone made a comment in it's
what does it
kind
say?
of
Read it out.
interesting. So he's
Go
saying
ahead.
that he's called God's devil dog. He says my argument is that you can't make something out of nothing, so therefore you can conclude that we were created from God or a higher power. So it assumes that it makes an assumption that something are not made out of nothing. I don't know. This is a difficult part.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, this argument of, like, yeah, exactly that. Like, you can't make something out of nothing, and so, if the universe had a beginning and therefore there was nothing there, and you know, it came out of nothing. I think it's quite a good one, actually, in my opinion. Right? I've heard people try to debate it, obviously, and they end up trying to define nothing, which is quite interesting. And when they end up defining nothing, by definition, you make that something. So,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? I think the best definition of nothing would be like a negative, like the negative of something. So, like, if there's something, well, the opposite of that would be nothing. You can't, it's hard to define nothing because nothing doesn't exist. So you would have to start with something and then take the negative of that. And so, because then yeah, like I said, then you fall into the trap of trying to make something out of nothing. I think that's probably a good one, like a good view. Don't you think? What do you think of that?
It makes an assumption. There's a beginning assumption that you cannot make something out of nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and I know it sounds facetious saying this, but it is an assumption that you can make nothing. You can't make something out of nothing, and that assumes that has to you kind of have to have like 100% confidence in that statement in order to conclude the rest of the. It's kind of like it's a foundational statement. You can't make something out of nothing. Now, there is proof in the physical world that we haven't seen anything come out of nothing. So, yeah.
I don't know if that's an assumption though. Why is that an assumption? Isn't that just
Because,
logic?
but okay,
Because
but even logic has to start somewhere, right?
yeah, well, I would
Yeah.
say logic comes from God. So I don't think it starts. I think logic is godly.
Okay.
So I think, because if we take it into math, it's kind of like saying, zero is always zero, right? 0 plus 0 is 0. You can't make 0 more than more than 0 unless you add something to it. So I would see it as logic, not a
Fair enough. Yeah.
right?
It's like a logical statement, like 1 plus
It's a
minus
logical
2.
statement.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's it. Yeah. It's always going to be true.
So 0 plus 0 is always 0, right? Or
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can't, you have to add something to it to get something, right?
yeah.
Um, and that logic, in my view, is I think logic comes from God. I don't think logic was made by humans. It's like a meta philosophy, right? Like, where does logic come from? I think it comes from God. So I don't think we can say that it was made by humans. It always pre-existed. I hear, like, I've heard someone say before, and this has made my mind bend when I heard it, but I heard someone want to say, before there were humans on the earth, was the statement, there are no humans on the earth, was that true? Like, the statement itself. And if the answer to that question is yes, well, like, logic can't be made from humans because there was no humans on earth, right? Are you tracking me? Because
No, yeah,
like, the first time I
I know
heard
what you're
that, I was
saying.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah. I think it's a good one. Oh, I don't know. What do you think of that?
I don't know that it's good because it can only come after humans have already been here. You can only say that statement once humans have existed.
I mean,
Otherwise,
you can only
yeah.
say it, but like, the logic is remains.
But I'm saying like the logic wouldn't even. It's like if I make up a word, something that doesn't
Mm.
exist, and I say before that thing that didn't exist existed. It's a statement that assumes existence. That's why you can say it. Otherwise, if there was no existence, you wouldn't say that statement.
No. Obviously, there's no humans to say it. It can't be said. But rather the conditions, like the conditions of if it's true. Like, what I'm saying is that that same statement before humans existed would have still been true, right? Like, it's not like because humans aren't here, it's all of a sudden false or it just doesn't exist. It's the statement still stands the same.
Yeah, I think we can get caught up in a rabbit hole for this. So, like going back to the original question,
Yeah.
um, if I were to ask you, give a percentage between 0 to 100 of that
Mm,
statement, instead of asking, because I think that the way it was worded is a yes or no, and I don't think that anybody is yes or no, because yes or
sure.
no seems like where would you be? How would you answer that question? Like, God exists.
So what's the full question? Can you reiterate it?
Let me share it again.
Yeah. All right.
Let's
Share it
add
again.
it. So it says knows God really exists and have no doubt. Where would you be in that?
Is it just yes or no?
I think it was yes or no because the way, if you look at the statistics that came out, I think it
Mm.
was yeah.
Yeah. Then I would say no, God. Like, I would say no. Like, I don't like I have doubts. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I can't flat say yes. Like, I'm always certain about this.
yeah.
Yeah. Because yeah. What about you?
No, I'm exactly the same. Like I always give, it changes all the time depending on the circumstances or whatever's going on.
Mm.
Sometimes I'm usually 60-40. Sometimes it goes higher, sometimes it can go lower. It's
Yeah, I think
yeah,
a percentage would be, or like a scale would probably be a little bit easier to answer. But if it was black or white, yes or no, then you have to swing one way. I can't 100% say for certain. My whole life, I walk around knowing as if God exists. And I think if I did, I think I would live my life significantly differently, right? Like, you know, I think that's the ultimate goal. Like, I think the reason we sin is probably because of the fact that you've completely forgotten about God, right? Like, if you were always sitting there thinking about God and what he had to say and, like, his mind, you probably wouldn't sin. At least that's how I see it.
mm. Look, I think
Um,
I actually found some of the result. Like I found it kind of sad because it's asking leaders. So
mm,
imagine like you're on the zero camp, that you're a
Mm,
leader and you're a pastor or a priest, and you have to go every Sunday, prepare messages, but inside yourself you don't really believe that he exists.
yeah, yeah,
Can you think of anything that's like, I can't think of anything that would be worse place to be than that, where,
sure.
and I'm not saying that priests and whatever they don't have doubts, but I think that has to be a foundational belief in your life
Mm, mm,
if you're gonna
mm.
be a leader.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, right? Like, you kind of
Yeah,
hope my kind of hope my pastor isn't standing up there having doubts about this or whatever it is,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I guess you are held to a higher standard, but I think you guess a bit of grace as well at the same time, right? Like, you can't. It's still human at the same time, right? You can't expect them to be perfect at this.
yeah.
Um,
So someone is
yeah,
saying that they're
yeah.
100% due to some strong experiences in their life. Do you have any experiences that similar to Cremo loves us all? I don't know what that name is, but yeah. Do you have any experiences
Mm.
that would lead you towards believing in it? Because, like I said, knowing, like we were saying before, knowing something, there has to be an element of experiential.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you raise an interesting you raise an interesting point, because I was actually talking to Nina about this today, and like, humans forget, right? Like, this is what the whole of the Old Testament is about, right? Like, you have God taking his people out of Egypt, and he does all these miraculous things, and then they're walking in the wilderness, and then they just forget about God. Um, and so sometimes we think to ourselves, like, wow, like, if God split the Red Sea, like, as if I would ever doubt God's existence, and yet the Israelites obviously forget God. But I would argue that I've had my own, like, experiences where, metaphorically speaking, God has split the Red Sea, and then, like, a year later, I'm just like, you know, walking around the wilderness, like where's God, right, type thing, and you forget. And so, um, that I mean that's the same pattern that we see as well, right, throughout the Old Testament, and God has to keep sending his prophets to correcting people and stuff like that. So this human pattern of God does something for us, we forget about God. God does something, we forget about God, and it shows God's faithfulness. But I think that's a different point to knowing if God exists versus if we remember who God is and God's faithfulness.
No, I think it's the same thing, because
You think it's the same thing?
you have knowledge is experience,
Mm.
and there's an aspect of knowledge that's not experience, but I think the biblical knowledge of God is an experiential knowledge as well, because God always says to, like, Israelites, remember when I did this, remember when I
Mm.
done that. There's
Mm.
always like an aspect of remembering, like even the
Yeah.
greatest, like the Shema, it's
Yes.
you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, and even the catechism,
Mm.
I think the beginning statement, it says that the purpose of man is to know God.
Mm. Mm.
That's why you exist, to know God.
Mm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
look, if it means that, like, for you 50 or 60 years of your life, it's not a one time knowledge, it means that
Yes.
it's an experiential
Right.
knowledge. And that
Right.
actually resonates quite a lot with that definition of the purpose of human life,
Yeah.
that it's for you to know God.
Mm. Yeah, that's good, man. I like that. It it sits well with me to sort of agree with that. And I think the way we get to know God is definitely different. People experience God differently through different experiences. Um, the one thing I will say, though, as I find with experiences, is that you can generally always uh like you can always explain it away through a naturalistic way.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's because we live in a natural world, right? So this is what I always find quite interesting, right? Like, if God has to do anything, he has to do it in the natural world, right? If he and this is actually gets into something interesting, because actually I asked Nina sometimes, like, um I think because Nina's asked me sometimes, she's like, "Oh, I want to see a miracle," and I'm like, "What do you mean by a miracle, right? Like, what is a miracle?" Because, um, everything can be explained in a natural way. Because when God has to do anything in this world, He has to do it through the natural means of this world, right? So when God does anything, you can always draw it back and be like, "Oh, like this is why it happened, right? Like this." Adam did this or whatever it is, and Earth there was an earthquake that caused the Earth to split, or this ocean to split a half or whatever it was, and it was this earthquake, whatever it was. But I don't think it's not. The more interesting question is why something happened, right? So if the Earth split in half, or the Earth split in half, the ocean split in half, the Red Sea split in half, and you can talk it away through a naturalistic cause by saying, "Oh, there was an earthquake, and that's what's caused the Red Sea that split." But why was there an earthquake that caused the Red Sea that split? You know what I mean?
That's
And
a
so
good question.
I think that's a more interesting question, because every miracle can be justified through a naturalistic cause. Anyway,
And that's look, and there's someone called God the Devil Dog. He was saying that later something happens, like you get a miracle like that, the Red Sea, and then you're like, it's
yeah,
just a coincidence that
yeah,
wind blew, opened up the water.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, spot
in
on.
Alpha, someone said something that is a pretty good line. He said that the more I pray, the more coincidences happen.
Yes, yeah,
Because
that's right.
yeah.
And you can like I said, you can justify anything through a naturalistic explanation, and so it always takes a step of faith, right? Whether you attribute the miracle to God or whether you attribute it to absolutely nothing, it's a step of faith. You have to take a step of faith to reject God, or a step of faith to believe it was God.
Yeah. That's why it can be hard for, say, someone is an atheist. It can be hard for them to be able to believe, even if a miracle happens, because there will be a naturalistic experience for that.
That's right.
As well.
Yes. Yeah.
And usually miracles, when they happen, they usually they usually return something to its natural state. Like if someone is sick, the natural state is to be healthy. When a miracle happens, it returns you to a natural state.
Sure.
So it's very difficult to say it's supernatural when it's actually natural. It's returning you to a natural state. And
100%.
I remember a debate that was happening, and he was saying that if you're debating with someone that doesn't believe, I think one thing that you have to ask them is their standard as to which they will define what's the evidence that they can accept that this is actually supernatural. Because anything that can happen will happen in nature, because like you said, we're object of nature. And because it happens in nature, you can always give it a naturalistic explanation.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, 100%. And I've watched videos of Cliff. You know Cliff. What's his last name? Cliff.
Literally.
Yeah, how he talks to like college campuses, and I've watched like short videos of him talking to college students. And he uses that same sort of strategy where people are like very skeptical, and his response is like, okay, so what would convince you, right? And generally they don't really even know. They don't even have a response themselves as to what would convince them. Which is, I guess, fair enough. Not many people have thought about that, right? But I think the best way I always, for me, I always think to myself, well, what's most reasonable what's most reasonable? So obviously there's 100 different things we could use to explain anything, but what's the most reasonable explanation? And I guess that takes wisdom, right? To have to look at something and be like, well, I have this, and this. What's the best explanation for these things? I think what I find interesting about this is, I don't know if you've heard not you've probably heard people sometimes say like, oh, I'm an atheist, I believe in science or whatever it is. And it's interesting though, because like science can't say anything about anything.
Mhm.
So like someone has to look at the data and draw a conclusion, right? So
Yeah.
a scientist has to take a look at something and be like, okay, this is what I think is the best explanation for this, right? Even if you apply the scientific method to anything, you need to look at that experiment and then draw a conclusion from it. Even if there's really good evidence for anything, right? Like you might boil water and jot down and notice that it boils at 100 degrees. And so every single time you do your experiment, you're going to notice it boils at 100 degrees. But yet someone still needs to look at that data and then say water boils at 100 degrees,
Yeah.
right? And so that is a scientist drawing that conclusion, right? It's not science itself. And so your faith is always going to end up being in someone, right? You're going to have to draw, take a look at someone, not science, sorry, not the study of things, and look at someone and look at their conclusion and then have faith that they made the right
Yeah.
conclusion.
You cannot exist in the world with no faith. It's impossible. You either have to trust that the physicists know what they're doing and they've explained the Big Bang theory, okay, and creation, how all the universes. You have to trust in the math, or you have to trust that God did it. But I don't even think that it's that binary. Some of the mechanisms would have been mechanisms that God could have used as well.
Definitely,
But
100%.
you still need faith.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah,
comment that
yeah.
God, devil, dog says that
Yeah.
you're saying that there will never be enough evidence. I think I actually disagree with that, because I know there's some people, when you hear testimonies, there's some people that didn't believe in God, and then they were in a bad situation, and they were like, look, God, if you heal my mom or you heal my, then I'll believe in you. And then they ended up believing. So I think for some people, yes, there's no amount of evidence that would convince them, but I think for some people that there's always is, like Nino
Sure.
saying, with things. I don't think that how much, no matter how much evidence you're gonna give, he's gonna believe
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone has a different sort of threshold, I guess you could say, of what they're looking for. Which is a very subjective thing.
Yeah. Do you know something? I heard something cool as I was listening to this podcast. They were saying that, talking about faith and scientists, they were saying that for you, I hope that I explained it well. They were saying that you're either a materialist or someone that believes in existence of a deity. You're not both. If you're a scientist, you are by default the process of science. It's by default assumes that there's a God, because it assumes that there's truth that has to be discovered, because that's what scientists are looking for. They're looking for the truth. If the Bible says Jesus is the truth, so what they're looking for is the truth. And for you to believe that you have to believe that there's a sort of order in the universe for you to do science.
That's right.
Yeah,
100%.
Otherwise, if you actually are materialist, then you don't believe in order. You believe in chaos. It's all chaotic. Everything happens for no reason.
Yes. Yeah.
So the science wouldn't exist without without a belief in God. I thought that was cool.
100%. I like that, because you have, like, to do science, you need a philosophical view that needs to be rooted in something, kind of like what you just said, right? You said that they are generally looking for truth when you do science, but that's a philosophical position, right? Like what, like, who says you have to look for truth, right? You could look for it. I know it sounds kind of dumb, but like, why not? Like, I could claim to be a scientist and then I just want to make up lies, and then I could be a scientist, right? Like, why? You know what I mean? It's a philosophical position to have, that you're going to do an experiment and try to understand the naturalistic world and try to understand what is true. And then to do that, I think you would need to believe in objective truth,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you would need to assume that if I do the experiment and you do it too, you would get the same result. It wouldn't be subjective to just me. And so again, that's another philosophical position. And yeah, so you definitely need a philosophical view to even do science, and like you said, it's yeah, I think people just do it without understanding what their philosophical view is. And like you
Yeah.
said, I think it's probably rooted in Christianity, or in a deity, or maybe not Christianity, sorry, specifically, but like a a higher whatever you want to call it, right? Like like
No, yeah,
a meta philosophy is what I would say. So I think that's interesting as well. I like to have that conversation sometimes with people.
it's faith.
Yeah.
It's faith,
Yeah.
but it's like unconscious faith. For you to be a scientist, you have to have that faith, and it's unconscious because you don't really question why is there a truth. If why does truth have to exist? Because you're saying that order doesn't exist. There's no. It's not that they're saying order doesn't exist, but why does an objective truth have to exist? Because the universe is like it's chaos with no conscious, with no organizing principle. It's all chaos. Anything happens because it just happens. So,
You'd be surprised how many. Oh, so go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah,
I was gonna say how many times I was at like ANU, or just like the uni here, talking to some students sometimes, because like that at ANU there's like a pub group, and they just like meet at the pub and just talk like philosophy. So sometimes I used to go just to like have a conversation, and you'd be surprised how many times I would talk to the students and then they like didn't believe in objective truth. And it creates a really interesting conversation, because it's funny because they don't live like that, obviously, and it really rubs up against them when you push it, when you push it, and you're kind of like, you sort of tell me like, yeah, but you say you don't believe in objective truth, but yet you think murder is wrong, and you think it's always been wrong, and you would never do it, and so on and so forth, and then you keep pushing it. But I don't know why they, like, even though they know that, they still don't want to change their position.
It's crazy, because that conversation is crazy, because for someone to not believe in objective truth, they have to assume that their statement is true.
Yeah, it's like those
Yeah.
roadrunner tactics or whatever it is, when they say like, okay, I don't believe in objective truth. Well, is that true?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Is the statement there's no objective truth true? Yeah, it just collapses on itself.
Yeah, like once you say that statement, I think for me, I'm like, all right, bro, like we cannot have a conversation, because a conversation assumes that there's an objective truth that we're getting towards, we're trying to find.
Yeah, spot on. That's right.
Yeah.
You have an understanding of, this, the things you understand are the same things I understand, right? Like, and we can only have these conversations because there's objective definitions and there's objective understanding and truth. So, makes sense, dude. It's funny.
Yeah. And then, okay, so one of the guys was saying that, tell that to the Aztecs about the murder question, like the murder is wrong. Everybody's always thought the murder is wrong, but Aztecs used to do the sacrifice, like the temple sacrifices, like they would sacrifice so many people.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, I guess it depends on like I think humans have always had potentially a skewed view on when, like, the difference between murder and killing, right? So if you take a country that has like capital punishment, right, they're not going to be like that society won't see that as wrong. right? So, the Aztecs at the time may have not seen what they were doing as wrong, but they probably didn't see it as murder at the same time. Look, I don't know actually. Don't get me wrong. I haven't looked into this enough, but I just
No,
off the
yeah,
top of my head, that's what I'm thinking, right? I'm just thinking like, it, like something I obviously think is wrong, like to today. So it could be like um voluntary assisted dying, right? Like I personally would think that's wrong, but the society might think it's not,
yeah,
right? I would consider that murder or a version of suicide, but like the society would not. And so what I'm saying is like the Aztecs might have not seen that as like killing, but they would have seen a derivative of killing as wrong. I don't know if I'm making any sense here.
no, yeah, yeah. Like a different
Yeah.
society, like people might think now we think that eating meat is fine, but maybe 50 years in the future, people are gonna think that we were. If everybody kind of becomes vegetarian or and all this, or they invent some other way to have food, then they will see that as barbaric and wrong.
Yes.
Whereas now
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
100%. And so there's like, I think throughout all human history, we have thought a killing or a definition of killing or murder, sorry, a derivative of our current definition has always been wrong.
Yeah, and even the Bible, interestingly enough, when you go to the Ten Commandments, it does separate murder and killing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't remember which one. Thou shalt not kill. I think someone was saying the Bible Project people were saying that actually, if you look at the original Hebrew, that is thou shalt not murder.
Yeah, that's right. And I
Yeah.
think so. The only Bible translation that has "Thou shalt not kill" is the King James, because I think it was like how we used it differently. But every other Bible translation will say, "Thou shalt not murder."
Yeah,
There's a difference between murder and killing.
yeah, and I always think,
speaking,
yeah, I always think that people that live in a society that's kind of been influenced by Christianity, they take certain morality claims as being universal when they're not necessarily universal. They
Wait,
think that.
can you say that again? I missed it.
So, for example, like the killing thing, the murder thing,
Mhm.
as you're saying that the Aztecs or other societies wouldn't have thought what we would define today as murder or as killing
Yes.
as morally wrong. They would have, for them, it's acceptable. Like even
Right.
for African people, like back in the day, it was like the law of the jungle. So for in those times, whoever was the strongest, the might was right. It was might was right, pretty
Yes.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
and
Yeah.
you just accept it, and you're like, yeah, cool. This is how it is, and yeah,
Yeah. And people like, I mean, throughout all human history, humans have done stupid things that we shouldn't do, right? Like we've always kind of gone off the rails to some extent, right? Like we've never aligned perfectly with the way God designed our morality. So I think we can't necessarily look at history either and be like, hey, look, this is what these guys are doing. Let's do it or not do it. I think the best way is to obviously just go back to try to interpret God's word and try to understand that better.
yeah. What I would say about that question, the question that we just, I'll address Nina's comment. Nina said that she thinks that the statement about murder is wrong, is a morality claim, not a truth claim. So
Yeah.
I don't know what she means, but I'm assuming it's to do with when the guy from the university was saying that murder is wrong is not a truth claim, it's a morality claim. Do you understand what? Nina, correct us if we're wrong. I don't.
No,
Yeah.
but how can you? I mean, it. Well, it's a statement. So any statement you're claiming to be true. So I think it's both. I think Nana's wrong. I think because if you can say murder is wrong, sure, that's a morality claim. I agree, but it's also a claim of truth, right? Like when you make a statement, any statement is you are claiming it to be truth, right? Like you can't. I'm fairly sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but philosophically speaking, we can't speak in the negative, right? So if I said to you, if I say anything to you, I'm there claiming it's true, right? So if I said to you like, you know, a negative statement that I don't think is true, like I don't think trees exist, that statement is now become a positive, which is like a positive truth claim that I don't
So
think
I
trees
have
exist.
I have a good example from North Thomas Aquinas. It's quite funny. He's saying, he said the comment, this statement is false.
Yeah, there you go. That's spot on.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm getting at, right? Like
Yeah.
we can't speak in the negative. It makes sense in my brain. I'm trying to get it out in words, right? But like, I don't know if I'm making sense here, but like that's a good example. This statement is false. Is when you put it out there, you're claiming that it's true, right?
Yeah. For me, it's an irrational statement. Right. It's irrational, right? Because it can't. Yeah. It is possible to make an irrational statement, and I think that's one of them.
Oh, like logically impossible. Like logically
Because
impossible.
how's that statement? How can that statement be either true or false? You can't saying this statement is true.
No. I'm not saying it is true, but
Yeah.
it's like it's a statement that you're claiming to be true.
Yeah. What I'm saying is,
Right.
we have statements that are true. We have statements that are
Mhm.
false. I'm just saying there's another category. There is statements that are irrational. They're not
100% for
logical.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. They're
Yeah.
not logical. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
when you put something out there,
yeah.
you're putting it out there in the positive.
Yeah. And
right?
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like I'm okay. I'm saying that there's statements that you shouldn't even try to debate with because
Mhm.
they start with that irrational premise, and
Sure.
you're gonna go nowhere with
Yeah, for
that.
sure. For something that's logically false,
Yeah.
if someone came into you and said, like, if we use math an example, like, 1 + 1 is equal to 3, and you tried to debate whether that, and you started the conversation assuming that was true, it's not going to go anywhere. It's an irrational
Yeah.
statement.
It's like
Yeah.
there's no point.
Yeah.
Like someone comes and tells you there's no objective truth. I'm like, all right, conversation over. Like there's nothing. We're not going anywhere. With
Oh, for sure.
like
Yeah. You have to start with trying to understand that objective truth exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're coming towards the 1 hour mark,
Let's
and
do it, man. Yeah.
thanks people for all your comments. They've been good. And
I
look,
agree.
funnily enough, we've only answered just one question out of the 6 of them.
What's the next question? Just
Okay,
so I know.
let me just put them up on the screen so that you can see. So the other question was definitely believe in Jesus' bodily resurrection.
You know what we should do?
Yeah.
I think we should. I'm gonna go away this week and think about these definitional words,
Yeah.
like believe, know, and doubt, because in all those statements there, you have these words that are to know, to doubt, to believe. But to answer any question, you need to really understand what these words even mean. Otherwise, we're just, I actually wrote a paper on this. I know it's getting one hour. I wrote a paper on this, and we should discuss it next time. I wrote a paper on this, and it was about exactly that, like how we need to define terms essentially before we even have a conversation about anything, and I'll share it with you. I'll see if I got it. I'll pull it. I'll find it, and I'll flick it over to you. Or we can have a chat about it next time. But it's interesting because the premise of any conversation is we need to define these terms. So
yeah. Hey, the chat, is there any, if you wanna say any last statements, let us know, and we'll. So for me, the one, so not Thomas Aquinas is saying, for me, the one lies in the evidence point to something probably having happened category. What does that mean? Not Thomas Aquinas. But going back to what you were saying in terms of having a definition for those words, I think it's good, but I don't also want to end up like Jordan Peterson, where you can't really say anything. You can't really have a conversation with that guy.
That's true. Funny enough, though, in my paper, I actually conclude that I actually understand what Jordan Peterson's saying. You know how like you watch those videos and you're like, what the heck is wrong with this guy? Can you just answer the freaking question? Yeah. I used to think that too. And then as I started writing the paper, I started to like understand what he meant. I started to understand a little bit more why he says what he says, where you're just like, what the hell is wrong with you, dude? Can you just answer the question? It just, anyway, I'll bring it up next time, and we can, and I'll share a little bit about like, I'll share a bit about it.
Okay. So, I'm looking forward to that because I'm actually interested to hear what you're going to say, because I am of the opinion that, look, all this definitional stuff is kind of trying to avoid the conversation, because the people that are asking, you know what the people are asking you. Like, if I ask you believe, we have a very defined thing. We know what when we say believe. I don't really want a philosophical definition of believer. I just want what we understand, what I understand belief means. And I thought it was like you would never be able to have a conversation with anybody in church, or a preacher would not be able to preach a sermon if words didn't have a common.
You're correct. Hang on, we're gonna go into a big. We're gonna go deep here, dude. Remind me about the. Actually, no, I'll bring this up next time, next week, or when we meet next. I will bring this up because I wrote a lot about this, actually, this exact topic. Because so let's leave it there, though. I need to go to bed.
Okay, let me read out the last.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
The last statements for the people that are chatting. So I think not Thomas Aquinas was saying the resurrection, it's got physical evidence, and so it points to something probably having happened. And I think I kind of agree with that. There was definitely, I think we can all agree that there was a crucifixion that happened. I think if you're reasonable and you're looking at the evidence, it's kind of reasonable to assume that, someone did get crucified. Jesus did get crucified, if you're looking 100%. At the evidence. What you can't doubt is resurrection.
Oh, for sure. So
that's what I'm understanding by
not Thomas Aquinas.
What he's saying. And I think Nina's was she's saying that every statement is a truth claim, and it makes sense. But I think it's been a good chat. I really don't think that I'm smart enough to go really philosophically about some of these things, but I think it's quite good.
It's good, bro. I like it, man. All right, let's leave it there.
So next week we're gonna be doing that.
I will tell you. I'll bring it up. I'll send you some stuff to think about during the week as well.
Okay.
So that way, so you can sort of thinking about it.
All right. All right. And the people that have joined us on the link on the stream, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your contribution. I think it's been pretty good. And see you guys next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.